Hi guys, welcome to section B of chapter 17. We're going to get into the reproductive system. So you might want to make sure you've got earbuds in. Not that there's anything inappropriate, but it's definitely personal information, okay? All right, so the overall function of the reproductive system is to create new life, but also to protect that new life, okay? Now, a little more specific, the male system specifically produces testosterone and sperm, and the female reproductive system produces the egg cells to be fertilized, the female hormone estrogen, but then it also nourishes that developing baby before it's born. Okay. Gonads are the proper word for the ovaries and the testes. Okay, so the parts of the body that produce gametes, which are those sex cells, the eggs and the sperm, those are called gonads. Okay, so now this graphic is pretty good and actually contains some good vocabulary in it. We see that, in total we have 46 chromosomes. Okay, that gets cut in half into 23 in these gametes. Okay, the egg and the sperm comes together in the process of fertilization that we'll talk about in this chapter to get back up to that 46 total chromosomes. Then once that egg is fertilized, it starts dividing through mitosis, okay? And it divides over and over and over again, forms an embryo, and eventually then after about 40 weeks, a baby is born, okay? So let's get into the structure of the male system. Some of this you know, some of this you might not know. Testes, we talked about those already. That is the male gonad, and it produces sperm. And those are contained in this external kind of pouch of skin. Sperm likes a specific temperature, and our internal body temperature is slightly too warm. And so God designed this external pouch that holds the testes, and it keeps them a degree or two cooler than the rest of the body, and that's just better for the sperm. Okay. The penis is, for lack of a better word, like a hose. Okay. It does contain the urethra, if you remember from the urinary system, that leads away from the bladder. And so when a male urinates, the urine actually comes out of that tube, which is housed in the penis. Okay. But there's a fluid called semen that also comes out of the penis. Okay. And semen is a mixture of those sperm cells and some other fluid that helps nourish those sperm cells. And that's what then goes into the female body to attempt to fertilize an egg. Now, sperm is microscopic, it's tiny, okay? There's 5 to 10 million individual sperm cells in every single drop of semen. So quite a bit, okay? And those testes are continually producing those sperm cells. All right, female system. Talked about ovaries already. There's 2 ovaries. That is considered the female gonad. It produces the eggs. It actually contains the eggs. Okay, the eggs are not continually being produced; they're already there, but they were produced by the eggs early in fetal development. Actually, the oviduct, also known as the fallopian tubes. Okay, so here's our 2 ovaries. The egg actually comes out of the ovary, and it goes into one of these 2 oviducts. It stays there for a few days, and that's actually where the sperm will get to fertilize the egg. It has to travel through those ducts to get into the uterus, which is a muscular kind of pear-shaped, think of an upside-down pear-shaped organ, which is where the developing baby is for the duration of the pregnancy. And it grows and it gets nice and thick. It's actually quite thick. It's like, probably close to an inch or 2, inch and a half thick. So it really provides a cushion for the developing baby. But it's also how the nutrients get to the baby. And we'll talk about that more at a later lecture. The cervix is the opening of the uterus. Okay, so you can see this right up here. This is inside of the female body. When a woman is pregnant, this actually gets plugged up. Okay, and so nothing can go in or nothing can come out because the baby is housed in there. But the cervix is an internal part. It's the opening of the uterus. If you ever watch medical shows where somebody's like getting ready to have a baby and they talk about how much they're dilated, how many centimeters, 6 centimeters, 8 centimeters, up to 10 centimeters, they're actually talking about the opening of the uterus. So part of labor is that opening up. We'll talk about that more later on, okay? And then finally, the vagina, which is kind of a canal. It's a muscular passageway that leads from the uterus to the outside of the body, okay? It is also known as the birth canal. That's where the baby comes out when the baby is born. That's also where the sperm then gets inside of the body and then would have to swim all the way over to one of these two oviducts in order to fertilize the egg, okay? Fertilization. So fertilization occurs when one single sperm cell gets into the egg, and then those 23 chromosomes from each of those gametes combines into that total of 46 chromosomes, okay? When one sperm cell gets in, the egg kind of undergoes this chemical change and it really locks out the rest of the sperm cells, okay? So it just needs one to get through, and that's fertilization. As Christians, we believe that that's when life begins. The moment of fertilization, there is a soul. Now, it doesn't look like a little person yet. It's just, it's only a blob of cells for a couple of weeks, but it's pretty quick that it starts actually looking like a baby, and we'll talk about that later. But in any case of what it looks like, we believe that that's when life starts, okay? So this actually takes place in that oviduct, like I showed you, close to the ovary. The egg can be in there probably about 4 days. So fertilization can occur up to about 4 days after ovulation when that egg comes out, okay? Once it's fertilized, the woman is considered pregnant, but that fertilized egg now needs to travel into the uterus, excuse me, to be implanted. We'll talk about that next slide. We now call this a zygote. Once the egg is fertilized, it's going to begin dividing over and over and over, and it's going to move into the uterus for implantation, okay? So implantation, it takes, 4 to 5 to 6, 7 days for this fertilized zygote to move into the uterus, okay? Once it's fertilized, once it's implanted, the period stops. Excuse me, I felt that coming, okay? It literally kind of burrows itself into the uterus. Sometimes that causes a little bit of bleeding. So a girl might actually think she's having her period, but it's usually not that much. Once it's implanted, then it's going to get nourishment from the mom. We'll talk more about that. So this is now about 100 cells, okay? It's divided over and over. It's a ball of hollow cells, undifferentiated cells. They haven't decided what the specific cells are going to become. That's going to happen really soon. Again, we still consider this a living thing, a living organism, a living being. We believe that there is a soul attached to this thing, even though there's not form yet. We don't know if it's a boy or a girl. It's hard to think of it as a baby. It is still a living thing, okay? Once it's implanted, the proper term is embryo, okay? And now it's called an embryo for about 8 weeks, okay? After that, it'll be known as a fetus. We'll talk about that in a later lecture, okay? And the embryo gets nourishment from the mother now. So everything the mother eats or puts into her body is broken down, and those nutrients then get into the baby. We'll talk about how that occurs in a later lecture as well. All right, that's it.